I'm really pleased to be able to welcome you here to Butser Ancient Farm this evening. Perhaps you'd just like to give us a bit of a background of you, first of all, for our audience.
Yeah, so my name's Matt Pope and I'm a prehistorian and archaeologist. I'm based at the UCL Institute of Archaeology. My favourite period is the very earliest period of human prehistory, the Paleolithic. It's a period I study. I really focus on from around 500,000 years ago. Just down the road from here we've got Boxgrove, which is a site I've worked on quite a lot. Right the way through to Neanderthal archaeology. I also work on a site in Jersey in the Channel Islands called Lecoq de Brelade. And basically what I'm doing is looking in the landscape of southern Britain for the traces of these unimaginably old extinct humans, much earlier prehistory than we're sat within here in an Iron Age roundhouse.
So where did this passion for archaeology, for the Paleolithic, come from? How do you think that started?
I think it started with fossil hunting. I think it started
as a child.
As a child, I think it came from just being, that kind of excitement that there was in the 70s about scientific discovery, whether
that was really a start of it, wasn't it? Lots of things kicked off in the 70s.
Absolutely. There was Lucy, one of our earliest ancestors, had become, through National Geographic and through TV documentaries, had become something of a rock star herself. We were in the post space race period where anything seemed possible about interstellar discovery. And then there was programs like The Making of Mankind by James Bronowski. These things all excited my imagination. And I was quite a nervous child, so it also vaguely terrified me as well. I was terrified of skeletons, absolutely phobic of skeletons. And I know where this comes from. It comes from, one, Jason and the Argonauts, the Harryhausen movie with the animated fighting skeletons, and also sudden discovery, too young, asking questions about skeletons, and my parents saying we're all skeletons underneath. And I just remember just feeling terror that, everyone was a skeleton. So I think fear drove me into it, and excitement about these things. It probably wasn't until I was about 8 or 9 that I knew an archaeologist was a thing. And it certainly wasn't until maybe I was 12 or 13 that I really decided I want to be an archaeologist. And
was
from
that
point,
early? That early?
There was no plan B. There was no plan B at all. Teachers didn't know what to do with it. There was no good career advice. Is it even a job?
So you've really lived your dream, haven't you?
Yeah, it's exciting, but you know what? It's also hard work, getting the funding, getting the projects, keeping forward momentum.
But with anything that's worthwhile, there is always hard work. And you have proven that it actually works. So Matt, I know that your job is really interesting. I mean, just the few bits that I've seen have been really interesting. And I know you do an enormous amount that I don't know anything about. What's the best bit of your career so far?
Best bit of my career so far is probably deciding to start a field project in Jersey. Everything that came from that decision has been really, really exciting. Alongside that, within that, even though it wasn't a dig that I led on, it was a dig in Jersey called Les Verrines, where we began with a single field and a few artefacts that had been discovered within it. And it was a case of teamwork and a case of just using everything we knew to do the building blocks over a few years and discover where these artifacts that have been coming down the hill for thousands of years, where they came from. And we discovered an Ice Age encampment with the earliest art objects in the British Isles, if you want to call the Channel Islands the British Isles. And just that day when you're first holding one of these pieces in your hand and you can see, for a French archaeologist working in the Dordogne, surrounded by the painted caves of Lascaux, I'm sure this is, a fairly mundane experience. But from my experience as a British prehistorian working in the Ice Age of the English Channel region, this was incredible.
Yeah.
And there was no luck in that. That was method and thought and teamwork.
And that just proves that your teamwork was really so pertinent in getting the result you needed.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think if I had been leading, or maybe one of the others had been leading on their own in one of these autocratic kind of digs where you just have a director and a team, I think probably you would have given up on that site within 2 or 3 years.
And how long were you there?
to get.
How long did you have to wait to get to that?
Exactly. Our first season was in 2010, and I'm pretty sure the art came out 2015, 2016. So
It's a long term.
It was 5 seasons, seasons of work. Yeah.
So it's not a short-term thing, and there's a lot of effort and enthusiasm and challenge in that.
Yeah. And thought, and being able to do like a month of field work, go away for 11 months, think about it.
Yeah.
Right, this year we're going to do this. We eventually caught it. So, wonderful. And those things that we've learnt out there, we try and bring back here. Trying to now deliver early prehistory in southern Britain is something that I'm still committed to, but it's very rare in this landscape.
You find things that are that old.
We can find stuff that's older. We can go back 500,000 years in this landscape. So just over the downs to the south of us, you've got the Boxgrove embayment, 26 kilometres wide, 500,000 years old. All through that landscape, the chance of really incredible world-class archaeology, that old. Just over the hill, just behind Portsmouth, you've got slightly younger archaeology, maybe 250,000 years old, of Neanderthals, very well preserved there. It's the resources you need to run a field season, to write it up. You're dealing with tens of thousands of pounds. And unfortunately, the UK at the moment has very little research money at the moment. It is not awash with research money. And these projects are seen as being, quite high risk and expensive. And I do think we are in a position where we're going to be losing out, compared to other European countries, because we're not investing enough in really good high quality research projects, unless you're in the Stonehenge landscape.
We were absolutely delighted in 2019 when you wanted to bring your students here for their, it was called Primtech at that time.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps you'd like to explain to people what that actually was.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an institution within our institution, and it's a course that was started in 1982, and it was started by our students in 1982. They wanted the experience of learning some, hands-on ancient skills and carrying out some activities. They wanted to go out and live life as, prehistoric people for a few days. I don't know where the inspiration came from. Of course, we're not many years after the documentary Living in the Past, where, a group of 1970s people went and lived in Iron Age huts. And they initially went to Peter Druitt's garden, paddocks and field. He allowed his property for it, and they ran it and they organised it with the support of the staff. Well, by the time I started the institute 8 years later, it became a bit more formalised, and it was part of the first year experience of every one of our students, and I was the student then. And since then, it's been at Mickleham Priory, and then it was at the West Dean Estate, and it's always slightly reinvented itself.
But it's always had the same aims. The whole purpose of that period, of that course, has always stayed the same, hasn't it?
Yes. What we're trying to do through experiment is understand the fundamental nuts and bolts and techniques. That might be making stone tools, that might be making early ceramics, or it might be making metal objects through bronze working or iron working.
How does this benefit your students?
Yeah, there's lots of benefits. One, they are going to be reading a lot and writing a lot about the archaeological record and the fundamental nuts and bolts of the archaeological record. They may have never seen a stone artifact or seen an intact, clay pot that's just come out of a kiln, let alone understand the link between the small sherds of pots or the tiny flakes of flints. It gives them a real life, tangible experience of the materials, of the textures, of the processes. They can calibrate everything they're reading through something they've directly experienced. The second thing is, if they actually want to get involved in experimental archaeology and develop programs in experimental archaeology, they'll have understood what it would be required to set up an experiment. what would be required in terms of resources, what would be required in terms of controlling different variables, and what kinds of questions you might be able to answer. Questions that actually, when you get down to them, are quite simple questions, but would still require quite an elaborate experimental program. So I think it would give them a good grounding in what's possible. But basically, experimental archaeology of the mind is a really important thing, that when you're just looking at the archaeological record, running through possibilities, and how authentic those possibilities are, how possible they are, is always going to be informed by your experience. And this course, Archaeo-Tech, gives them that experience.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of their Freshers' Week, isn't it? So these very, very new students who have only just been accepted as on an undergraduate course are launched into some kind of understanding of experimental archaeology very quickly. And it's a real immersive experience, isn't it?
Totally.
But a lot of people struggle to understand what we mean by experimental archaeology. So how would you encapsulate that? How would you describe what we mean by experimental archaeology?
Yeah, well, I think if you asked, lots of different archaeologists,
they all have a different answer.
Lots of different answers, but for me, it's about what's possible. It's not a recreation of the past. Experimental archaeology is something that takes place in the present. It's at the moment, it's a 21st century activity, and we can't ditch our 21st century perspectives on life. But the archaeological record is so imperfect. The archaeological record is full of so many possibilities and uncertainties. Experimental archaeology can help explore them. And it can work out what's possible, it can work out what's probable, and it's quite good at working out what's impossible when it comes to interpretations of the past. So it's calibrating, at all levels, it's calibrating our interpretations of this imperfect record of past human activity.
I think that's what our visitors find really interesting, but some of them find it really hard to just grasp exactly what we are doing here, what it's all about.
Yeah, and it's about, I guess, about different scales of experiment. So something like this, amazing, it's an iconic structure. This, it's incredible. What would be invested into actually running experiments, and experiments being, something that's repeated, would be to take the post hole arrangement here and build 10 of these.
All different.
All slightly different.
Yep.
That is, a multi, you would spend hundreds of thousands of pounds doing that. But even just like one structure, one place that ends up in one interpretation, you still learn so much. You will still envisage those other possibilities. You could still document those other possibilities at each point. So actually, even in creating one structure like this, those 10, those 20 can be imagined. At the other end of the scale, we might be just looking at tiny different variables, measurable variables like the temperature of a furnace or a kiln, different ingredients in a clay mix or within ore, and just changing tiny variables and looking at the outcomes. Really fine-tuning the science of sort of approaches to material objects. And then there's other kind of vaguer experiments, if you like phenomenology, which might be just, you've got here a way of recreating, the experience of listening to, sound within a roundhouse. Could someone have a private conversation over there? Would we definitely hear them? What can you hear from outside? What can't we hear from outside? How close would a marauding party of other Iron Age warriors get before inside a house like this you'd hear? Things that are about the experience of living in structures very different to our own. So, the scope and scale of what experimental archaeology can be is really the limit of what you can imagine in the past, and then putting that imagination to the test.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming. It's been lovely to see you, and it's been really lovely talking to you this afternoon.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's been lovely to spend some time in your house here.
Thank you. Well, come back again soon.